I could see him being an agent or producer. I could see him in that role. Bro, I'll go as far as to say, even if you wanted to let him and Sean run NXT, because that really is developmental. Even I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. But the spot he's in now, if he did not marry Stephanie, no way, no how would he ever be in that spot. Absolutely not.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here with Vince Russo with another episode of Russo.
Wow, look at that, huh? Very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Woo! All right, so let's talk about Bret Hart, ladies and gentlemen. Bret Hart, you gotta love Bret Hart, ladies and gentlemen. Bret Hart doing Bret Hart things, ladies and gentlemen, as he has been known to do. He's built a funny reputation of being just a 4 out of 10. That was the big thing that he said Triple H years and years ago, and that 4 out of 10 judgment years and years later is still the same thing as far as how he feels about Triple H. He said on a recent interview with Inside the Ropes, he said Triple H, he talked about Triple H, said a guy I had very little respect for. I wish he'd been in the dressing room when I knocked Vince out because he might not be married to Stephanie. Shots fired, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I didn't quite understand what he meant by that.
I don't really know what he meant either, other than the fact that it logically it just seems as if I'm using deductive reasoning, it seems as if he knocked Vince out and it made Vince look like a coward. And so he wouldn't want, Triple H would be too embarrassed to marry the coward's daughter. That's basically what I got from it. Yes.
Okay. All right.
And he also said they were all scumbags. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon, they were set out to destroy me. Vince Russo, this is another opportunity for Bret Hart to shoot on the Click members. Yes. It's nothing new. We've heard this for a long time. What do you think, Vince? What else is there to comment on regarding Bret Hart not liking Triple H? And before we got on the show, we were reminded. And we went back and saw the Hall of Fame, the notorious Hall of Fame handshake gate, yes, when Bret Hart made the really, really funny face after shaking Triple H's hand. So what say you, Vince?
All right, this is what I think right here.
What do you think?
This is what I think.
This is what we envisioned in January, okay?
Yes, sir.
It's happening here in September. Gonna go on forever.
September. Play that overtime. Play that overtime.
You know what makes it so funny?
What's that?
This is after the first game of the season.
Yes, indeed, ladies.
And it's going to go on forever.
Forever,
yes. They lost the next game.
Yes, they did.
Let's play one more.
Play one more time and pay attention to the word September. I think it was so funny.
Yeah.
This is what we envisioned in January, okay?
Yes, sir.
It's happening here in September. It's gonna go on forever.
You know what's so funny? I think that Shad Khan would have been for a very, very good 1980s villainous manager.
Yes.
Like a foreign heel manager with that type of promo. I think it would have been
I would love, bro. I would give anything for there to be a reality show about the Khans. Yeah, I swear to God, that would be so great. Yes. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
man, somebody's got to do that. All right, let's get back to Bret.
Yes, indeed.
Listen,
What do you think, man?
Let's get down to the brass tacks. And let's really be 1,000% honest, because nobody is going to say this. As a matter of fact, maybe the only person that would say this, or one of a very, very, very few, would be Bret Hart. Because, Chris, let's be honest, outside of marrying the boss's daughter, how qualified is Triple H for the position he's in? Let's be honest, because I am telling you from a creative standpoint, he is not qualified at all. At all. And what I'm talking about is basic fundamentals, basic babyface heel fundamentals. He is not qualified when it comes to creative. So Bret Hart is the kind of guy, Bret's only going to say things that Bret would say. How many people would say that? How many people would honestly say, listen, man, if he didn't marry Stephanie, he would not be in that spot? I could think of people in the wrestling business much, much, much smarter than Triple H that never in a million years would wind up in a spot like that. So that's the reality of the situation. You know, Chris, I'm sorry. I look at Shawn, I look at Triple H, and I look at Taker, and I ask myself the question, how qualified are these guys for their positions, and what makes them qualified? The fact that they were great wrestlers does not qualify them, Chris. Chris, there are great baseball players, football players, basketball players, hockey players. They don't necessarily make great owners or great coaches. These guys were great players, but I am telling you now business-wise, we know they're not doing anything business-wise. That's all Nick Khan, that's all Ari, that's all Mark Shapiro. That's a level above their heads. So what am I looking at, man? All we have to look at is the product. And there are so many freaking holes creatively that I question every week, man. Is this guy qualified for the job if he did not marry Stephanie? I think that's a fair question.
I think that is a fair question, actually. Very fair. Because if you think about it, you know, it wouldn't be based on tenure. I mean, he's definitely have tons of tenure, but he definitely was never the premier, you know, star of WWE. He wasn't the person who Vince put, the Rockets on, or Vince had him carry the load. Now, he was he was a solid main eventer during his time, but, you know, there was Austin, there was Rock, there was Taker. So, you know, it's Triple H never had his own era. You know, when they did put the turn and he became heel and he became champion, that's cool. But Triple H never had his era. Shawn Michaels had his era. Austin had his era. Cena had his era. I would say even Roman Reigns, this would be his era. Of course, before that was Hogan. Triple H really never did. You know what I mean? It makes me wonder if he wouldn't have married the boss's daughter, if he wouldn't have married Stephanie, do you think that he would have politicked his way up there? Do you think that he has the skill set of politicking?
Nope. I do not think for 1 second he'd be in the spot he'd in. The highest, honestly, bro, is maybe an agent. I could see him being an agent or producer. I could see him in that role. Bro, I'll go as far as to say, even if you wanted to let him and Shawn run NXT, because that really is developmental. Even I'm fine with that. But the spot he's in now, if he did not marry Stephanie, no way, no how would he ever be in that spot. Absolutely not.
But didn't he politic his way from NXT to the main roster, though? Because he started NXT. That was his baby.
Yeah, well, but again, a lot of this went down when Stephanie was named head of creative, and because she was named head of creative, part of that rubbed off on him. And bro, listen, there's no question in my mind. There's no question if he never married Stephanie, that spot should be Shane McMahon's. Without a shadow of a doubt, that should be Shane. And that's why when Bret says stuff like that, and I watch this show every single week, and I'm just like, man, this dude is not qualified. Bro, I would have never in a million years been qualified to be talent relations and do contracts and figure out money. I wouldn't have had a freaking clue. And I don't care how many matches you worked, writing and formatting and directing a crew of creative writers has nothing to do with how many championships you won. So I think Bret is really, being honest when he questions that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the reason why Bret just despises this whole thing.
Yeah,
because he probably felt. I mean, he's mentioned this before. He felt that he was trying to be politicked out in the first place by DX, and in many ways he was. Because the screw job and all that was the Shawn Michaels thing. Triple H was right there with him. And so he felt like he already, I think that was 28 years ago. I still think there's some bitterness from Bret Hart because he felt that he was pushed away, because even if you go back to the conversation that he had with Vince McMahon was really trying to lowball the snot out of him. And Bret even said, yeah, I'll accept it. He wanted to stay in the company, but Vince was trying to push him out. And so, of course, when people have that type of bitterness and that type of even a sense of unforgiveness, they look for the scapegoat. And to me, with that Vince and Bret thing, I can definitely see Bret seeing and looking at Triple H and Shawn Michaels as the clique. He was never a part of the clique. He wasn't affiliated with the clique. He was on his own world, but the clique was taking over. And you could tell that was their mission. And even from a standpoint of, and I'm going to ask you this question. I'm interested in how you think about this. Even from a standpoint of Triple H starting to become, kind of taken back and started to shadow Vince McMahon and being his apprentice. He started to do that in the early 2000s as far as just being in the booking room with him and the creative room with him. And so it seems like this has been a plan for a long time. And it's hard for Bret to see the plan, in action and being a real life, unfortunately, a real life casualty of this plan coming to fruition. And to see it 25 years later, I could definitely see why he feels the way that he feels.
Well, Christian, you know what the funny thing is, bro? You got to remember, there was a time you had DX and you had the clique. There's no question about it. But there was a time when Bret was very protected, because look who Bret had around him. Bret had around the Bulldog, Owen, Pillman, Neidhart. It was the five of them. Yep. And, bro, I'll be honest with you. You put those guys in a fight up against the clique, I think those guys win. Bro, these are – and let's look at the upbringings. Bro, here's the problem, and this is what Bret has to really look at and understand, bro. And this is why he really should be okay with it, okay? Bro, when you look at the Hart Foundation, those five guys that I just mentioned, there was a time when they were all together. Yeah. Bro, these guys were not politicians. They never wanted to be politicians. All the times I worked with them, they weren't politicians. They didn't have an ego. And bro, what does that all go back to? That all goes back to Stu. As a shoot, those guys did it in the dungeon the right way. This is what they knew, bro.
Yeah.
These other guys were politicians, man. Hall
Yeah.
was a politician. Nash was a politician. HBK was a politician. Triple H, they were politicians.
Yep.
So, Bret, if I'm Bret, I just have to be honest with you. I know he's very bitter. Hey, bro, Bret has said some harsh things about me just because he connects me to Vince and WWE management. I know he makes the connection, and I'm fine with that because I've stated on the record 1 billion times, Bret Hart does not have a bigger fan than me, and I will never say a bad thing about him. He can say whatever he wants about me. I will never say a bad thing about him. But Bret should really be proud knowing he did it the right way. At the end of the day, at his age, bro, here's the thing, man. And I say this all the time, Chris, and I know you're made of the same makeup. What's important to us as we get older? What's important is, can we look ourselves in the mirror? Can we look at our wives? Can we look at our children and know, you know what? You can be proud of your dad. And when you go out in the working world, I set an example for you to do things the right way. And Bret did things the right way. But bro, this is in the wrestling business, things don't work out the right way.
No.
And Bret knows that. He knows that. But that's why I'm saying, man, to me, the most important thing to him should be, you know what, bro? I can hold my head up proud. I never played that freaking game. I got there on my hard work and my talent, and that should be the most important thing to him. Come on, bro. You don't think Triple H doesn't know how he got there? You don't think Triple H doesn't know for a second if I didn't marry Stephanie, I would have had a total different trajectory in the wrestling business. He knows that darn well, man.
I think that's a fantastic point, man. If you think, even if you think about certain wrestlers who have really done a lot of hard work, didn't politic their way, and still have a virtually squeaky clean legacy that's not marred by the politicking, the affiliation with Vince, the current, status as far as people not liking how the creative is, and just how, pro wrestling has shifted so much away from what brought people to the dance in the first place. Think of like a Sting. Sting is someone who didn't politic his way, hard work, did what he's supposed to do, clocked in, clocked out, was there at the right opportunities, worked his way, honed his character, did the things that he wanted to do, committed to the bit. You always put over Joker Sting as far as just him being toward the tail end of his career, still being willing and available and excited to even revive, and even make another layer to the Sting character. You think of someone who's a hard worker like that, who's a hard worker like Bret, both of them can go to their families and say, you know what? I created this legacy, and there's not a lot of holes poked in it based on public opinion. And I think with Bret and with Shawn and Triple H, you kind of have that issue with that.
Yeah, it's like, bro, the other day, I don't watch NXT, man. I've maybe watched 3 episodes of NXT in my life, and I'm talking about when Charlotte was there and Kevin Owens. I haven't watched an NXT, but I saw this clip of, I guess, something they did the other night, and how were they opening the show? There's Triple H and Shawn in the ring. And I swear to God, bro, I'm watching this, and my immediate reaction is, guys, are you ever going to get over yourselves? Like, freaking get over yourselves. Look at the two of you. You look like 2 old men because you are 2 old men. It's time to get over yourself. Bro, here's the funny thing. This is it in a nutshell, Chris. While these guys were playing a chess game, when they were playing politics, Shawn and Triple H and all of them, when they were playing their little game, bro, Davey Boy and Owen were worried about playing ribs. That's what now, if that's me, I'd rather be the guys playing the riffs. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yes. So like, listen, man, I've got to assume, Chris, Bret's probably got some money. Bret doesn't look like the type of guy that burned through money. I know he was divorced, bro, so maybe there was alimony and stuff like that. But Bret wasn't a guy that burned through money, and Bret made a lot of money throughout his career. So I'm sure it's like not a money thing, but I don't know what he would be envious of. Would you really want to be in that spot if that's what it would have taken to get there?
I agreed, but to answer your question, I think he's envious. Like I said, I think he felt like Triple H and Shawn Michaels politicked their way to push him out the company, man. And we saw that with the screw job. Yes, he was able to make amends with Vince, but at the same time, as you saw with that handshake and that subsequent face that came with that, clearly he didn't make amends with Triple H. There was that gimmick, there was that angle where he made amends with Shawn Michaels. They had a couple of sit-down interviews. I think it was one big sit-down interview they had together. And so it's one of those things, man, that it's hard to really get to a point, especially as Bret is starting to age more. He's starting to go into what's called crystallized intelligence, more not really getting more new information, kind of resting on the information he's acquired over the past 65 years. And so when he's reacting to like novel information, he's not really taking it and like rationalizing it out. He's just kind of getting to a point where he's just like, whatever. It's Triple H. He sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't matter what type of novel information comes. Triple H can apologize to Bret Hart 1,000 times, man. It wouldn't make a hill of beans of a difference, because this is what and it's called primacy bias or primacy effect. This was the perception or the impression that Bret Hart had with Triple H back in '97. Because of the primacy effect, he's going to have that in 2025, and that's what we see with Triple H. I'm sure Triple H apologized to Bret Hart 1,000 times, man, but it doesn't matter to Bret. He's going to go and he's going to do his interviews, and he's going to bury Triple H again.
Bro, we also have to take into consideration, like, I'm sure this plays a part in it as well. Bro, when I talk about the Hart Foundation and the other 4 guys he was surrounded by, bro, none of them are alive. It's just Bret. True. None of them are alive. And he sees, Triple H with X-Pac and Shawn and then Kevin, and he's really the lone wolf. I mean, and bro, I would think that and you could tell me better than I can answer this, Chris, but I would have to think from a psychological point of view, that would play into it a little bit, where like he's the last man standing. He lost all 4 of these guys who are family and so close to him, and he's still watching these guys act like freaking DX.
Yeah. Even from an existential standpoint, he's surveying. He could be surveying those things and be like, man, I had solid, stand-up people around me, and they are gone, and I have to put up with a bunch of politicians and still live through this. You know what I mean? Like, I can definitely see that type of evaluation when it comes to, his kind of life trajectory and how he's looking at things. Man, I've got these people still around, but my boys are gone, and my boys were stand-up guys. Yeah, I can definitely see that being a part of it, for sure. Yeah. Good point.